So if you're watching this video, you're probably trying to get your home sold and you're a little bit worried about your buyers getting approved for their loan. So I'm going to share with you what happens when a buyer actually gets denied a mortgage when trying to buy a home. Before we get started, if you are selling your home and you have a cash buyer, this video does not apply to you at all. It only applies to buyers that are trying to get a mortgage on the home. So if you have a cash buyer, stop watching right now. And if you have a financed mortgage buyer, please keep watching. Or if you don't have a buyer yet, definitely keep watching because it's probably going to apply to you. Most buyers are probably going to have mortgages in today's day and age. So I want you to go back to when you signed the contract. Now there's something in real estate contracts called contingencies. And these contingencies mean that the sale is contingent on this thing happening. That means that in order for the sale to happen, this needs to happen. So I want you to ask yourself, was there a mortgage contingency waived in the contract? That means that if a buyer waives a mortgage contingency and they select check that off or write that in the contract, that means that they're willing to still purchase the home even if they don't get approved for a mortgage. So the sale of the home does not rely on them getting the loan. Now, why would a buyer ever do this? Buyers actually do this in really hot seller markets if they really want to purchase a home. I've seen it done actually a lot in really hot sellers markets. Now, to be honest, when I'm working with buyers, I don't typically recommend they do that because it could be very risky. And a lot of people don't have a rich family member that can just buy them a home all cash. This is the only time that it's done. And most likely, if you're not in a really hot seller's market, the buyer probably didn't do this and the sale of the home probably is contingent on them getting a mortgage. So if you don't know, go back to your attorney or your title rep or your agent and check to see what the contingencies are in that deal. So another thing I do want to know, this video is not about appraisals at all. It's not about if the home appraised or not and if the loan is contingent on the appraisal. This is not about that at all. I have separate videos on appraisals. I definitely want you to go take a look at those instead because I do talk about different scenarios with that. This is only about if the buyer is qualified, if the bank thinks that they can afford the property or not. So if they had a mortgage contingency in the loan, which they probably did because most buyers do, then if they don't get approved for the loan, they can just walk away, no problem, and actually get their deposit back. So they don't really have anything on the line, honestly. If they did a home inspection, maybe they would be out their home inspection money, but that mortgage contingency basically protects them from really losing any money during the deal. And like I said before, if the mortgage contingency was waived, they would have to come up with the cash to purchase the property or they would lose their deposit. Depends how your team wants to handle that scenario. So what can the buyer do if they don't get approved for the loan? Well, they could go to another bank and try to get a loan there. But the one thing to keep in mind, and this is why a lot of buyers don't like doing this, is because they would then have to start the whole kind of like under contract period over again because you have to go through all of underwriting again because it's a brand new bank. So this is hardly ever done. And I guess the only time it would be done if the buyer or the buyer's agent, their team really knows that they could get a loan with this other lender. That would be the only time that would really work out because most of the time, depending why the buyer got denied, other banks are probably going to deny that buyer as well. So as a homeowner, if you're willing to let your buyers go to another bank and kind of start that process over again, they very well can try to get another loan. I just want you to know that it's really going to delay things because they're going to have to start over again. So these are the different scenarios that happen if a buyer's loan is denied. It's pretty straightforward and I don't want it to seem overcomplicated in this video. Now, again, most loans do end up going through. In today's day and age, it's pretty uncommon that a buyer gets a pre-approval and then doesn't get the loan. Now, another thing I want to note to you is that during the time that a buyer is under contract with a home and they're going through that underwriting process with their lender, they need to make sure that they do not do anything drastic. They do not purchase any other type of property. They do not purchase a car. They do not switch jobs if the underwriting is relying on that job. Those are the type of things that the buyer cannot do. So just keep that in mind and just make sure that if you hear a buyer that you're working with is doing any of those things, make sure you have that conversation because those are the type of things that will get a loan denied. Because after the big market crash, 2008, underwriters want to make sure that people can really afford the real estate that they're buying. They don't want to see that again. So that's why this criteria is in place. So I hope this helped you understand what can be done if a buyer's loan gets denied. I would love to know, as a homeowner, would you let a buyer start the process again with a brand new bank if they really wanted to purchase the home? Or would you then move on to another buyer because you know that they're probably not going to be able to afford the home? As always, I just love hearing from you guys.